Welcome to Design Dispatches, coming to you actually from the Design Museum. It's wonderful to be back in the building. And today, I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Ron Arad, the industrial designer, architect and artist, certainly a boundary blurrer, who was educated in Jerusalem, having been born and grew up in Tel Aviv, but then came to the AA in London in the late 70s, established a practice in the early 80s, Ron Arad Associates in 1989, added an architectural dimension in 2008, who's designed everything from the Rover chair to a table tennis table to design museum to a hospital. Across the range, you might say. He's also exhibited in many of the major museums in the world, including the Museum of Modern Art and the V&A here in London, and he's a Royal Academician. And Ron, I wanted to begin by linking the fact that you were professor at the Royal College of Art in London. You were head of design products in the design products department for 12 years. And I just want to talk about your experience teaching and as a student. What did you learn as, first of all, as a student? Or what was it that made you want to be a designer?
I'm still working on it. I didn't even know I wanted to be an architect when I studied architecture. I found myself in London in '73, and I looked at art schools. I looked at the Slade, I looked at other schools, and I went to the AA to see the AA. And the AA those days seemed to me closer to my idea of what an art school should be than the Slade, because no one was building anything in London or in England. And so there was conceptual architecture like Bernard Tschumi and Archigram, all these movements that the product was not a building, not bricks and mortar, papers with airbrush papers. It's before Photoshop. And yes, we can talk about how without Archigram there would be no Centre Pompidou, because it is, and if you build something those days, you had to apologize to all your friends that you built. So it was, but also the main thing about the AA those days, it was a very pluralist place. There was Alvin Boyarsky there, it was the chairman of the school. You could never tell, is he completely indifferent and bored, or is he a pluralist? You know, because we had decadence there, you know, like, and we had like Trotskyist, and it was a very rich school, and it was everyone that came, everyone in this profession that came to London had to come to the AA. It was an amazing place. And I found myself being interviewed, and I saw lots of nervous people in the queue biting their nails, and I didn't have a portfolio. And when they asked me, can we see your portfolio? I said, I don't have one, but I have my 6B pencil with you. Do you want me to draw you something? Why do you want to be an architect? I don't want to be an architect. My mother wants me to be an architect because she was a great painter. And whenever I show talent in drawing, she never said, oh, he's going to be a good artist. She said, he's going to be a good architect, thinking that it's a safer profession, thinking how wrong she was. Anyway, but, you know, if you remember Blow Up, Antonioni's Blow Up, the people that played the table tennis without ball, the tennis without balls, they were AA students. All the people that helped Crystal rep a mountain in Australia. I mean, the AA was a very avant-garde place in the art world.
Did you use that model when you were teaching? Because product design at the Royal College of Art is much more vocational in terms of its title. But did you adopt an AA approach of pluralism and let people?
Adopt is a nice word to me. I copied it. No, it is. First of all, I take credit. I invented the name design products because I didn't want to call it product design. And before I interfered, for 150 years, there was a furniture course, not even furniture design, furniture, where people actually taught people how to do dovetailing and how to deal with wood, you know, and And there was industrial design. That was a separate course. And then there was industrial design engineering, and there's all sorts of things. And we're very lucky. We had a very sort of progressive thinker there called Christopher Frayling. And it was enough to run into him in the corridor and say, look, this doesn't make sense to have two courses, industrial design or furniture. Let's make it one course. Yeah, okay, fine. And I combined the two courses. They were very brave to employ me. And I used to really make them worried when I said that we take perfectly employable students, 2 years with us, they leave unemployable, which I thought was a good thing. But and it was, because if you take people, I don't know, like, there's lots of people that are not employable, but they employ 50 people from the course, like, I don't know, like Roland Lamb with a Seaboard and people like that. So it was never a boring encounter with Christopher, and he was a real pluralist. And I had to appoint all the tutors there, and I employed people, first of all, people that were too busy to teach, because you want the job done, you go to a busy man. And I called people from different genres of design, people that were they couldn't be more far away from what I did. I don't know, like Jasper Morrison, for example. So I offered him it was sort of, and at the AA, it was called units, unit 1, unit 2, unit, like, at the Royal College, I invented the word platforms. The lucky thing about teaching at the Royal College is that it's a postgraduate course. So you don't have the responsibility of giving them tools. Tools for what? What do you want to do? And we assume that there are professional designers or whatever they are, and they want some, 2 more years to improve themselves and to find exactly what they can do. And indeed, you asked me about my teaching, but the most important thing is not the tutors, are your peers, the people. There's a very lively studio there, and they influenced each other, and it was a very, very, very good 12 years.
It sounds very inspiring, and it's quite clear. I mean, it's one of the things that I keep reiterating and discovering, that design is a collaborative thing. But of course, certain facets of design require specialization, and architecture is a specialized profession, although it engages all aspects of material culture. Do you find that you have to switch creative persona when you're working as an architect on a commission to when you're designing more fluidly in the studio, or do you apply the same processes to whatever it is you're designing?
Well, I apply the same approach, and the same curiosity, and the same dislike for conventions, and the same. People ask me, why do you do so much? And I say, because I'm lazy. I do jump from one thing to the other, and I can get into it. But I think in architecture, I mean, as much as I didn't want it, but there are two cultures in the studio, against my philosophy, but I'm against philosophies as well, so it's okay. There's the architects, and there's the designer and people that work in the art, and it takes, I don't know, architecture is a funny sect and a funny religious profession, and you have to deal with lots of people, with clients, with the husbands, with the wife, with the neighbors, with the fire brigade, with all different authorities, and you are employed by them. You have to I'm not saying I'm not neurotic about it. You have to do it, and that's your job. And you do it because you do enjoy doing buildings, and you do enjoy doing architecture, like in any other things that I do. You want to do something. The only point of doing something is if it wasn't done before, or it's new, at least to me. I mean, of course, people will say it's a bit like this, or anyway. But it is the same approach, and they read different magazines, building design, and the architects, and they have. But it is the same approach. But I just thought of something that I quoted several times, that Vidal Sassoon said, that the 3 steps for success. First one, very easy: establish yourself as a creative genius. 2, not so difficult: employ people that are better than you at the job. It's okay. 3, very difficult: let them get on with it. So it's not what's happening, but I have people that are sort of, for sure, more conversant in building regulations than me. I mean, for them, for some people, building regulation is the starting point. For me, it's the necessary evil. I mean, it is, for me, it's like what you have to work around. So I'm, in a funny way, I'm the oldest in my studio, but I'm the most juvenile in the studio. So, but it's working really well, because we completed last year an amazing, check it, you don't have to take my word for it, an amazing building of 30 floors, but now we're working on phase 2, which is 75 floors.
Where?
In Tel Aviv. And it is, it started with, and you have to be, in architecture, you'll find that, look, there are a lot of amazing, fantastic, creative, experimental, restless architects. But for every great building that you find, you see that there was also a great client, because in architecture, the client has a big role.
So who's the client in Tel Aviv, and what's the building? Is it an apartment block, or?
No, it's an office. It's an office building full of startupists and high tech, because it used to be a country that lived on agriculture, but now it's a country that lives on pixels, and they invent like driverless car, and they're all there in this building, and it's called Toha, and it's an amazing hub, and the owner of one of the companies that came to the studio and just said to me, if I showed you some land there, and said, what would you do? And I said, try me. And I think the building is so successful, I hope they're not listening, is because I had very little brief from them. And when I said try me, that meant a presentation like 2 months after that. And in these 2 months, I didn't ask them, what did you mean by that? We just did whatever we wanted. And we did I did sketches, as I said, I did sketches to frighten them. Because it's better to frighten the client in the beginning than later. And they looked at it and they couldn't go back to what they had before. So I can tell you more, it's an upside down building. It's a very big building with a very, very small footprint. And all the machinery in the plant, instead of putting it on the top where most buildings do it, we put it on the ground. So the whole building starts with the machinery, which means you have an amazing 7th-floor lobby when you enter, and you can see this. Anyway, so it is an upside-down building. I did sketches that they like now. They want to hang it in their offices, and it is a great success. Every millimeter is let, and it is. I had a conference there, and I once took a taxi, and I gave the taxi driver instruction. you know, it's this ugly building with the bronze. And he looked at me, ugly? It's my favorite building. I said, okay, your taste. Okay, so he took it. Anyway, so it's...
But that idea about metaphorically, in this case, literally turning things on their head is creatively very powerful. But you're also working at the moment on a cancer hospital in Israel, in northern Israel.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It is.
But that clearly you can't just throw everything metaphorically up in the air. There's certain brief.
I don't intend to. I don't want to throw everything in the air, but
no. But is that more constrained? Is the brief much more constrained, or can you still think as laterally?
Absolutely, and there's a lot of look. The thing, the hospital started because I'm sure you've seen the other design museum, the Holland Design Museum.
Yeah.
And so a member of the board was a doctor, a children's doctor, and she passed away. Sadly, her husband was a very successful businessman, wanted to do a cancer ward named after her. And he wanted it not to be in Tel Aviv, not to be in Haifa, not to be in Jerusalem. He wanted it in a place that needs it more, away from the centers, and also that caters for the Arab little cities and villages, as well as the others. Anyway, so he was very idealistic in his brief, and we had also a part in choosing the site because we had several options. His condition was for him to donate the money is that I'll be the architect because he loved. Although some people already started, some other architects started working on it, and I've seen what they did, and I called them. And it's not that they have more experience designing hospitals than me. I don't have experience in designing hospitals, and they're experts. They make hospitals in different cities in the world. And I called the guy that I said, look, I mean, I don't want to, step on your toes, but I said, it's okay. We're looking forward to it. We're not children. We'd love working anyway. So there, the starting point was completely different. It's not about what the building looks like when you drive past it. Ooh, there's a nice building. It's about how you feel when you're a patient there, when you're a nurse, when you're a doctor, and we are the family of this. So the building, the best views are not the views of this lump we did, which is, I hope that's good as well, but it's what you see when you're inside and what you experience from when you're inside. So it's a bit like that. That's the hospital, and there are the wards, and that's the nature that comes in between them. So it was, and also there's the accelerators that have to be, there's a lot of things, but I'll never forget the first meeting I had with all the people in the hospital. We had a brainstorming about what they expect. And you heard one thing and the opposite. One said, the whole thing, it's about the patients feeling part of a community. And no, the whole thing is about them being alone. They don't want. Anyway, you have to deal with all sorts of, you have to take it in. And for me, it's very, very good to do a hospital because, when you do a museum, you can feel guilty that who are you catering for? We shouldn't feel guilty. But when you do a museum, it's something that is good. You're doing a good thing. Also, its location is good, and I got an email today. I can share with you, but I won't, of the building site, and it is pretty amazing to sketch, to talk, to sketch, to draw, to model, and then there's like lots of big holes in concrete, and it's like unbelievable. It is. So it is a good thing that's happening, and there it's not about of course you do the best you can. By the way, when Charles Jenks came to visit me, because he has the Maggie centers.
Yes.
I showed him the project and he complained to me. He wrote me a letter and he said that, yeah, it's good, but I don't think it's Ron Arad enough. And I took it as a compliment.
Do you have a sense? I know what he means by that. And of course, you would take that as a compliment because you would say, I don't have a signature style. I apply different.
I do have my hand.
But yeah, but do you, is there a language that you see very much as your own when you look at something you've created?
Not really. I mean, people talked about curves. Well, and for me, curve, I mean, to me, a straight line is also a curve, except it's the shortest curve between 2 points. And it is, I have nothing against straight line, but why should I have anything against curves? It's like, yes, maybe it's cheaper to do straight lines. I remember at the AA in the first year, I decided I'm not using drawing tools, only freehand. And somehow, when I couldn't get away with it, I took all the plastic triangles and things, boiled them, so the lines became not straight. So I used my tools. I still have them.
You see, and that's Ron Aradian, because it's kind of mischievous and playful. But of course, the idea of serious play, I think, is quite a profound one. And I would imagine that there are aspects of even the cancer hospital that have an architectural playfulness in them that isn't flippant. I mean, you can be flippant as well. We all can be. But do you see a kind of a sense of playfulness in everything you do? Childlike, not childish.
Which is better, childlike or childish? Anyway, infantile.
It's not. Yeah. I think childlike means because there's always, because you said that you behave like a juvenile, and this is something you said early on, and I just mean there is that kind of sense of the rebellious kid still in you, isn't there?
It's not so much rebellious. It's not rebelling against anything. It's just not, just wanting to delight myself, but finding other ways of doing something. I have a very, sometimes I enjoy bad interpretation of what I did. Like in the early 80s, I did the concrete stereo, which I thought I'm creating an object of beauty by casting also I did what I could do because no boss or Berg and Olufsen didn't ask me to design for them. So I had to ask myself. So I cast all the electronics in the concrete, and then I chiseled it to expose nice pebbles, resistors, all the beauty, and it's all very beautiful. I thought I'm creating a very beautiful object. When the Pompidou Center did an exhibition in '86 called the Nouvelle Tendance, they wanted to invite people from all the genres of design. And then they had this idea, maybe we should also have a ruinist. That was me. I said, okay, I'm a ruinist. And they had names like post-Holocaust and Beirut style, because Beirut was by those days the symbol of destruction, and completely the opposite of what I meant. But you cannot fight interpretation of what you do. Once you finish it, it's not yours to. You're not in charge of what people feel about it or understand about. Could help a little bit. So I was lucky that misinterpretation made them invite me. I was the youngest exhibitor there with Mendini and with Hollein, and Jan Kapusky was there as the retro futurist. Anyway, so I'm saying bad interpretation is not always bad.
What about?
I had the same with the rover chair, by the way. When I did the rover chair, it's like this is when my short attempt to work for an architect, before I realized I'm not cut to work for the people, especially not after lunch. One lunchtime, I didn't come back. I went to a scrapyard. I was thinking of Dijon, ready-made, Picasso's Toro, and other ideas. I did think of Prouvé. And later I discovered that Prouvé copied my rover chair before I was born even. He didn't even wait till I'm born. And he just, anyway, so, but what I'm saying there is that Friends of the Earth, remember the magazine Friends of the Earth?
Of course.
It was they put the rover chair on the cover of of their magazine, giving it as an example, like, recycling, reuse it to the depth. And I was very happy. I mean, I did my thesis at the IA about found objects and ready-mades. And
so it wasn't, for you, it wasn't about recycling, but that's how it was perceived. It was about.
It wasn't. I was very happy, and I'm very, it's a good thing, recycling. Except when you look at a chair that someone designed and he tells you it's made completely 100% of recycled material. Yes, but it's ugly and uncomfortable.
Ron, I just want to end. I mean, it's a big question about what the future. I was going to say post-COVID. Everyone's talking about post-COVID, but actually we're going to have to learn to live with it sometime. But I wonder what your thoughts are about the role of architecture and design in the way the world has to be in the short to medium, maybe even the long term. Have you had any thoughts about how you might alter or affect how we negotiate the next
few
years?
First of all, I found myself at the beginning of the lockdown coming up with this idea of putting art on masks. You heard it? So
you and I Weiwei. Oh, that's great. Yeah.
This was before Red of Ai Weiwei. But I think the difference is here the idea was to make you see,
boring by comparison.
Who's more interesting, me or Tim? Look, I can be Marilyn Monroe if I want. Or
I liked you before, actually.
Or I can be Salvador Dali if I want. And blah blah blah.
Do me a Ron Arad mask. I'll be Ron Arad. That'll work.
Yeah, but I have a project for the Royal Academy that I delayed the conversation with them today because of this. But yeah, I mean, this here is something, you have the idea, you do drawing, you please yourself, everyone it's really fun to go to the street with this. Everyone wants one. And everyone, I also designed the logo, which is Smile. It was used to be Smile for our carers. This is Smile in sign language. This is, in America, it's this. In England, it's this. Anyway.
I knew we'd run out of time, Ron, which we have. But, it's a big digital world. The Design Museum has got the most brilliant lecture theatres. We've got more digital space. So there's no reason why you can't show us some of the projects you've been working on. You could even do a workshop for us. But for the formal part of this, I want to end with a smile to say I'm definitely going to get your mask and to thank you and wish you well. Ron, thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.